Good morning, good afternoon, folks. Thanks for joining the Restaurant Technology Guys. Our webinar today, NRA Show Recap 2015, a look at the best tech from Chicago. Welcome, Jeremy.
Good morning, Gary. It's good to be home.
It is good to be home. I can't believe a week ago yesterday was when we were leaving Chicago. What a trip, what a show. I can be more excited. I have been a pessimist about trade shows for the last 6, 7, 8 years. They were refinding themselves, if you will, and it appears that NRA has found itself.
I would say, yeah, you can say that. I memean, we'll talk a little bit about how and why, but I agree, and I don't know if it was the economic downturn or just people's buying habits have changed, but it seems like whatever happened with NRA was a bit different than what traditional trade shows have looked like in the recent past, unless you're in a very segmented market that looks a little bit different than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I think that regionally it still begs the question of what trade shows are going to provide the consumer in the future. Having said that, I can honestly say with 100% confidence, and these facts bear them out, that NRA is back.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, like I said, it was kind of crazy. We've walked the show as the Restaurant Technology Guys the last couple of years. This is, I think, our third year in a row going. Yeah. And the amount of energy, the amount of buzz, and just the amount of people seemed like it was on overload this year compared to years in the past.
Yeah, agreed. So I'll give you some of just the fast facts. It's the largest food service show in the country. It began in 1919 in Kansas City, and it's food retail's most attended show. Obviously, that stuff is by their own proclamation. This stuff, the next 4 bullets, are the real deal. 637,000 square feet of presentation space. Holy moly. We had a bet from one corner back to the Lakeside Pavilion, how far it was. Just shy of half of a mile?
It was just over a half a mile walking from one end of the show to the other. And that was walking on a beeline as the crow flies straight from one area to the next.
Yes.
Gary and I mean, I've got a Fitbit pedometer deal, and walking the trade show floor, we took one day and just kind of buzzed through everything, and we did over 10 miles walking just the trade show floor in that one day, based on my Fitbit. So who knows? I don't know what that looks like, but I know that us walking up and down the aisle,
feet are here to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
And to add to that, 8% increase. Their largest show was in 2000, and this was a 8%, almost 10% increase in presentation square footage. 63,000 registrants, all 50 states represented by attendees, and over 100 plus countries. Europe was well represented, South America well represented.
I mean, you could walk around the show floor and there was just different languages being spoken. You're like, oh, hey, there's somebody from, that's speaking Spanish, speaking Swedish, speaking French, kind of all over the place. It's kind of cool.
We saw people in the booth from Brazil. We saw folks from Amsterdam. We saw folks from New Zealand. It really, really exciting. Back to Jeremy's point earlier about the energy, that was one of the biggest changes that I've noticed, and that's why I say it's coming back, is the energy there for the attendees. Obviously, we won't know what their purchasing power is until after the fact. Having said that, this last one, 98 of the top 100 restaurants represented.
Yeah, no, so if you look at the NRN's top 100, all 50 of the top 50 were there, and 98 of the top 100 restaurants were registered. We obviously don't know whether all of them attended, but just the fact that they have representatives from 98 of the top 100 restaurant brands and the NRN top 100 is incredible. So going to the show, you're listening to, hearing from, talking to some of the top people that make this industry what it is. So it was pretty cool, and gives it just validation that if you want to be somewhere, this is somewhere to be as it relates to the restaurant space.
Absolutely. Jeremy and I have gone the last 3 years as just representative of you guys, our audience. We wanted to give folks a snapshot that weren't able to make it out to Chicago. And now I've got to tell you, in 2016, if you've got must-attend shows, this this would make it into my top 3.
And quite honestly, we didn't even have time to go to the educational sessions. I mean, this is the first year as Custom Business Solutions as well that we represented our own products, and so we had minor booth duty, but we took 2.5 days to walk the show, and really that wasn't even enough, and that wasn't going to the keynote speakers, the educational sessions, or any of that stuff. Yeah. We didn't have time for any of it. So it's a show that you definitely, if you want to go learn about what's going on in the industry, not just from a technology perspective, but just across the board, there's opportunities there to spend an entire day or 2 in just one of the 3 showroom floors if you wanted to.
Yep. And I'll use that as a segue to jump right in. We're bringing you guys the best from Chicago. Before I start hitting buttons and running through our top 5, folks, as we go through, this is so conversational. Down in the bottom right-hand corner of your go-to meeting panel, go ahead and fire us in questions as we're going through, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. Obviously, we'll leave a little time at the end too, but let's jump into this. Our top 5 from Chicago, Jeremy. Number 5. Social review trackers. This was interesting.
Yeah, no, and I want to preface our top 5 list. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but what Gary and I were trying to do on our 10-mile walk that day was to walk around and see what is the trend, what are people doing as far as technology that would be interesting to our audience. And so with that being said, there's lots of people that are trying to hear, from their customers and understand what does that mean to their branding, to their messaging, to their marketing, to their customer service. Everybody's heard the stories of, United Airlines and that guy that did the whole viral video with the guitar, or, the positive attributes, or, Yelp has a story once a month of a restaurant owner going off on a customer, or, doing a great thing for a customer. And so there's lots of different people, both mature and relative newcomers to this space, that are saying, let us help you manage your brand in social media and marketing and communications out to your customers in a way that's going to take the technology and help enhance your brand image, and also figure out what's going on. There was people that had a full-blown product that was doing that was all about, keeping it behind the wall, not being out there, and putting out the positive stuff and being able to react to the negative before it hit the customer base, to people that were just using the existing channels of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Yelp, all of those kind of things. And so the aggregation of big data and what that means to being able to understand your customers and what you're doing as a brand is huge. You guys have heard us talk about it. And so there's now people trying to help restaurateurs and marketing people to be able to do these things.
Yeah, this is a big unknown at this point. I would really throw this in the category with payment, quite frankly, is you've got a lot of folks scrambling to get into the middle of this. They've got an idea of what they're going to deliver ROI-wise back to the consumer, in this instance the restaurateur, yet it's still somewhat unproven. It's still, these are pioneers. So with the pioneers, and that's one of the other things that we try to provide in this list, is to give everybody an idea of what the pioneers are doing, because there's usually 1, 2, or so out of the dozens that approach the marketplace that actually survive, and this is one of them. That this is stay tuned.
Yeah, no, and again, you guys have heard me say a lot, depending upon your brand image, you're going to need to understand certain aspects of technology. Mm-hmm. And so if you're let's go young, let's go hip, let's try and, Yelp will talk about an increase in a star, from a 3-star to a 4-star will increase your business by 15 to 20% just by bumping that up. If you're not managing these things, whether it be through brute force and just going on Yelp and reading the reviews and responding back to those guests, or using tools like this, it can help or hurt your brand and help or hurt your business. Mm-hmm. So understanding what people are out there doing, and the one thing that we didn't do is we didn't go any specific product. So if you guys see a picture of a booth, it's just one example of one of 5 to 10 of each one of these things. So we go through our 5. There's anywhere between 2 and 10 different vendors that are trying to do this, some facsimile of this idea. So,
and there's method to our madness. The reality is, there's a saying, who remembers the person that lost the World Series? That's kind of how this is, and that's why we don't focus in on the names and give you guys a better idea of what the business impact is. The names will stand up for themselves over time. But let's jump to the next one. Number 4, the POS boom. This is wild, because for my first time, I don't know about you, Jay, but I heard a customer say, I want to go look at traditional point of sale. I'm not interested in the newer stuff.
Yeah, no, and that doesn't happen very often. But I think when we talk about the POS boom, there's really 2 trends that I would say are out there, and we've been bringing it to you guys for over 2 years now. The first one is the payment providers getting into the space and trying to either partner, build, or buy a point-of-sale solution, out there, whether it's bundled with somebody or it's people like Harbor Touch, Rebel, all of these different people. They're going out and they're either partnering with payment providers, or the payment providers are bringing a solution to market to try and get that business. First Data did. Heartland bought a couple of different point-of-sale providers recently. So you think about it, and the payment providers are huge. So they've got economies of scale and a lot of customers and across a lot of verticals. So they're trying to have a market penetration through either buying or partnering with point-of-sale providers out there. Mm-hmm. Anything you can add to the kind of payment space?
I would just say that you've got traditional point-of-sale, you've got Micros, Aloha, PosiTouch. We had dinner with our friends from PosiTouch on Saturday evening. We've got Revel, we've got POS Lavu, that's now known as Lavu. We've got Breadcrumb, spawned from Groupon, spawned from the ability to offer a free product if you give them the credit card processing, and an advanced product if you don't, and end-to-end. So what do these camps look like? Number 1 is the traditionalists. Number 2 would be the new age, and number 3 would be the hybrids, which is a payment for functionality trade-off.
Yep. Yeah, no, and so the second thing that I would say about the POS boom is there's not anybody that's not showing some form of tablet-based point of sale. Right. Across traditional and or non-traditional. The iPad that came out 4 years ago has truly revolutionized the computing market. You guys have heard about it on the news. You guys have heard about it in the paper. You guys have heard about it, anywhere and everywhere you go. And so the tablet market has really, really impacted traditional and new age, point of sale. So everybody's got a tablet, whether it's Android, iPad, Windows tablets, all of them, combined. Everybody's got multiple tablet solutions out there, and I don't know that there's anybody that we walked into their booth to look at their point-of-sale solution that didn't have some form of tablet computing represented in their point-of-sale space.
Yep, absolutely. No stopping it. So.
Yeah, I don't expect it. And the one thing I will also say about the POS boom is there's a lot more players that just continue to come into the market, which for a while there it was consolidating,
right?
And there was a lot less out there, but it feels like because of the tablet computing, there's a lot more people. The barrier to entry has been reduced, I think, to have the breadcrumbs. And these people that are in the marketing, email, .com space,
right,
trying to get into the payment space. Square was there, the Groupon people with Breadcrumb. So these, Living Social owns one portion of one of those companies out there. And so I can't remember the name of it, but, they're all there, and they're trying to figure out this space. And so it'll be interesting to see how that flushes out. Like Gary said, nobody remembers the losers, and so I think it will come back down to there'll be a few of them that'll get tired of the space because it's not an easy space to be in. We've been in it for over 20 years. It's not an easy space to be in, and so I think what will happen is it'll get back to consolidation.
I think that one last comment that I'll add to the POS boom is to put myself out there and say that when evaluating traditional point of sale versus the newer iOS-based products or the cloud-based products, it's going to come down to feature functionality that is aligned appropriately to carry business forward through revenue production. That's the key. The second part, in my mind, from the front of the house, will go back to one of the age-old questions, comments, which is how many button touches? How many button touches does it take? How intuitive is the software to move either the consumer self-ordering or the employee ordering traditional-wise? How fast can I transact that order?
That transaction? Yeah, no, and it's, I mean, you guys all that are in the restaurant space know that it's a game of how many tables can I push through my property, how much revenue can I drive per person, per square foot, or whatever. It's a great segue because we just got a question that came through from, I believe it's Gershon. Why don't we see, with the proliferation of tablets, why are we not seeing more table-side ordering? And I think that that's an interesting question that we'd love to kind of just pontificate on here for you guys, just because I think it's a great question. And I think no different than you guys will see here in a few minutes when we talk about kind of some of our honorable mentions. I think if you understand the adoption curve, and there's a great video by Simon Sinek out there from a couple of years ago, a TED Talk, where he talks about the adoption curve, and it's something that's been out there for a number of years. Simon Sinek just did a great 10-minute video on it that I would recommend anybody go watch. But I think there's still some early adopters that are out there that are needing to get past that 10% market penetration before we start to see some larger adoption. I think that's one, and then the second one is that I don't think it fits every brand image everywhere, because unfortunately people oftentimes that the buying power is in the baby boomers and that next generation. They see people playing around with technology in their hands. They think they're playing Candy Crush, not necessarily using it for business efficiency. Those are my opinions just from talking with our customers about why not do it. I think it fits in specific market segmentations, big patios, big bars, show space. Like one of our customers, the Improv, uses handhelds in their property because they only get one turn per comedian, and so they need to get the food in, get the drinks in quickly, and they can't be walking in front of people because they're going to be in that space. So that's my idea. I don't know if you have any other thoughts.
I would add to your first point, which would be the manufacturers still have not brought the price down low enough for greater adoption. There's still this wall between consumer grade and commercial grade products. The more robust softwares, the more capable softwares, in my opinion, don't run on Android, which an Android tablet is probably one of the cheapest you could purchase. And so you've got a disconnect between product that will withstand the environment and software that will enhance the running of that product in that environment.
And the one other thing that I would say about that software side is I think a lot of the POS manufacturers are trying to I don't even know what the adjective is, but they're trying to keep their margins where they were with traditional, and so the cost of the devices as well as the cost of their software is not always conducive to be able to get a fully integrated solution. And the cost of integrating a non-integrated solution is expensive.
Right.
And so you take something off the shelf that might be a phenomenal tablet ordering product, but then trying to integrate it into a traditional point of sale, it makes it difficult and challenging because you've got two-way communication. And so I think that, thank you for that question, Gershon. I appreciate you throwing it out there, and it's cause for great discussion. But I think as the adoption curve starts to get there, you'll start to see them hit the market segment even more.
Yep. You'll see that 10% plus of adoption. You'll see the drop in pricing from manufacturers, and that starts the cycle.
Yep, very much so.
Number 3, the Internet of Things, and this is interesting because you and I talked about this while we were walking the floor, and that was, holy smokes, and no duh, but there's technology in everything.
Yeah, and I do want to throw out there, and I don't think we have anybody from our friends at Toshiba, but we had some of the executives at Toshiba in our booth, and they were laughing because Gary and I were laughing because we had thrown out the Internet of Things, and they're like, I'm so tired of hearing the Internet of Things. But the truth is everything is connected to the Internet, trying to push up big data, whether it's stoves, ovens, temperature gauges, refrigeration, cleaning products. Anything and everything has a microchip in it, and it's pushing data to the web to be able to do analysis. It is amazing.
Even the kid that had the to-do list.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but it was an app for a to-do list.
Yep, there was 2 of them I saw that had a to-do list that was connected to the internet that you could buy to tell people what to do their job.
Remotely.
Remotely, exactly. And the guy's selling point was you could be sitting on the beach and tell your guys to make sure that they're doing their bathroom checks. And if they're not doing it, you can see it and get an alert as to why they're not doing it. So everybody kind of is seeing this, whether it's in their home with a Nest thermometer, not thermometer, thermostat,
right,
to the smoke alarms that are connecting to the internet. Honeywell produces them in their homes, to the Fitbit, that I just talked about on my wrist that's sending data up to the cloud.
The wine dispenser and the soda pop dispenser and the yogurt, all of these things.
Yep, and even product resupplies like Pepsi and Coke are now connecting those, the freestyle machines that Coke, so aptly put out a couple of years ago, is connected to the internet, so they know when to come back and do the refills.
Yeah.
So they don't have to do ordering and things like that. So it's pretty incredible how this technology is getting into the space. One last thing, and we'll talk a little bit about the Startup Alley, but I saw the first product in the restaurant show this past week, that used the idea of beacons in the restaurants, and it was a product that was tied around beacons and loyalty. We've been talking about the idea of it. Now there's actually products that are starting to come through to that, and that kind of talks back to the Internet of Things and understanding who's coming where, when, those kind of things. If you listened to the webinar a couple of weeks ago with Gary and the guys from Euclid Analytics, you hear about beacons and aggregating big data to be able to know what your customers are doing and what they want.
Yeah, it all comes down to Big Brother is watching.
It will be.
Number 2 was big data and loyalty, and this kind of surprises me because there's still a rush into this space, whether it be from the consumer side tied to loyalty or the corporate big data reporting side to the analytics and everything in between at this point.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm a student of Peter Drucker, who was a management, guru and management philosopher, and kind of wrote some of the books on modern management. But you need to be able to capture the data to be able to understand where things are at. And so I think now that they're able to see transaction counts real time and guest check averages real time and labor numbers real time and whether the kid checked the bathroom real time, they're able to change consumer behavior. They're able to change what their marketing messages are. So I think people are trying to get out of these Internet of Things, as well as your traditional point of sale, as well as your credit card aggregation, and across the board, they're trying to capture all of this data and deliver pointed messaging, deliver pointed loyalty, all of these types of things out to their customers to be able to get more churn, to be able to get more customers through the door. So huge, huge, huge. And like Gary said, there's still more people coming into the space. You've got your traditionalists, that have been in the space for a while, people like Crunch Time and See To It and Restaurant Magic and End,
Paytronics,
all the way down to these guys that are the Swipeleys of the world that are taking credit card data to be able to understand where your consumer behaviors are. And so it's an interesting space, and I think it'll continue to flush out as time goes on. But it's not something to not have on your radar if you're a technologist, to understand that you can make better business decisions if you have the stuff in a place that's actionable.
Yeah, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Very much so. That's definitely a Druckerism.
And then the number 1 item was automated kitchens. And this, again, I kind of alluded to this earlier. All of these abilities attached to kitchen technology bringing the cloud into play.
Yeah, very much so. It's funny because there were things that were automated cookie makers and automated. I mean, they had robotics. They had robotics for so much, all the way through to the automatic temperature gauges. And so this one kind of plays into the Internet of Things, but it's not quite there as these. I mean, Gary and I sat and watched the demo of this pizza maker that made a full pizza, like from press the dough to put the sauce on to put the cheese on, a fully robotic pizza maker, through to automated sushi, to cookies, to it was really cool to see how much robotics and automation is playing a part technologically in our space. And so it'll be interesting to see where that comes into our space, and where does it connect to point of sale, where does it connect to that big data, how do they flow through together and work together for production planning and, you know, prep planning, and, you know, does it make sense? Do you make enough pizzas to be able to buy this oven that's going to do it automatically for you? Do you get the quality that you have out of it? You know,
this stuff is going to flush itself out. It'll be interesting to watch. Obviously, technology, we have a history in technology replacing individuals and increasing productivity. With that said, there always is consumer adoption. It'll be interesting if this automated kitchens are able to penetrate beyond multi-units, where traditionally they'd be the ones that could afford it, test it, actually see if it worked. This one will be fun to watch, because it is really the next step. Is we've got front of the house consumer engagement. Now we need back of the house of a global electronics management capability, which is what this speaks to.
Yep. Yeah. No. It's I mean, it's a cool idea if you can make it work. I think Gary's right that we are going to see technology replace jobs. We've seen it already. Not that those jobs are going to go away. I think they're just going to move into different segmentation. Yeah. So they're going to turn into customer facing, or, you know, whatever it is. Those jobs aren't going to completely go away. But I think what's going to happen is technology for repetitive tasks is going to hit an ROI point that makes sense to just do it.
That's a good way to say it. So now we're going to jump into our honorable mentions. These ones are, you know what? These ones, quite frankly, we're as excited about these as we were about some of the top fives. These are the diamonds in the rough, in my mind.
Yeah, these are all just kind of, so we threw out honorable mentions. These are just things that struck us as we left and are flying home to just say, they still have me thinking.
To start with Startup Alley, because you got a chance to go through Startup Alley with Ryan. What did you see that jumped out at you?
Well, Startup Alley was kind of cool. They did like a little, I mean, the Startup Alley was, the whole space was probably 50 or 60 by 100. And they had probably 15 vendors in that Startup Alley. And so with that, these guys just had a pedestal and not a whole lot more. Yes. And there was a 3D printer that printed bowls, to just some, you know, you'll hear disruptive technology. There was an Uber-type delivery driver service that was out there, to these people that were they were just trying all these really cool things, these young companies that have got 1, 2, 3, 5 people that are trying some innovative things to try and make their way into the market. And so there was a company out of Chicago that was doing some cool stuff with loyalty and you know, social campaigns around loyalty and you know, trying to promote brands. There was a group that was doing hashtag tracking up onto video boards into stadiums, so you could see what was going on real time within that brand to video. So yeah, there was a bunch of little cool ideas that were coming out of the Startup Alley, and it'll be interesting to see if they're there next year, because we'll be there.
Yeah, that'll be. It's fun, because to me that's capitalism at its best. Folks are taking their swings at entrepreneurial greatness.
Yep.
That takes a lot of courage. So one of the other things that we saw a lot of, Jeremy, is digital engagement, and everybody thinks the no-brainer is the screens. We've got, you know, a photo here of DT Research and their digital menu boards, and we've got the ones in the background showing the same thing, but in the forefront, you've got the drinks.
Yeah, no, and I think that I think the amount of digital engagement, whether it be, you know, if you've eaten at a Chili's lately, they've got tablets at the table to, you know, unique ways to be able to advertise, to digital menu boards, to, you know, Smashburgers now got full color display, customer displays, not a little 2-line green bar telling you what the price is, that's trying to upsell you the shake instead of the, you know, the combo drink. So I think you'll see a lot more screens in our restaurant space. And where those screens are going to be at is going to depend on what your preference is, what your brand image is, but there's going to be more screens. I mean, there was people that had menus that were completely digital, that some of them were backlit like a Kindle, all the way through to full tablet, you know, based menus for wine lists and things like that. And so you're going to see a lot more digital engagement in their restaurant space.
Yeah, I think that as the manufacturing drives down the costs and the consumer starts to almost, I don't want to say demand, but expect.
Yeah, they're looking at their phones anyway, and you guys have heard us talk about omni-channel ordering and having your brand image be on phones and tablets and websites and in-store. All of that stuff is going to happen. You've got to be where the consumers are at, and it gets attention.
Yep. This was a good one. This Daily Donor, an app for 21st century fundraising.
Yeah, no, and we always like to do shout-outs to people that are doing good. We did a webinar a while ago on Rounded Up America. This was another one that just seemed like they were trying to take what we were doing in our space and give back. You guys have heard, if anybody follows the NRA, you guys have heard of the No Kid Hungry stuff. Yep. They do a great job with that. But this Daily Donor was just an app that was kind of trying to get your community involvement and get your restaurant involved in giving back. Just a small portion of your earnings back, both from your employees and from the restaurant.
Yep, and customer engagement starts with grassroots.
Yep, yeah.
Another one was, we talk about day dots and the electronics that is porting this data up to the cloud, but really making sure that we as restaurateurs are serving the freshest possible food.
Yeah, no, and the whole idea of day dots, and this is probably the fourth or fifth, a picture of, one of 4 or 5 different vendors that were out there that we saw that had digital day dots. So when you prep food, you could print the labels, and then it also captured when did you make that guacamole. And nothing hurts a brand image worse than, somebody getting sick from their food. And, you guys, Bluebell ice cream is, their stock is in the toilet right now because of putting out bad food. And so, it almost killed Jack in the Box, a number of years ago. I know a local brand here in Southern California, Pat and Oscar's, had a scare, had got some people sick with some lettuce some number of years ago, and it hurt their sales super significantly to the point that the brand didn't ever recover after that.
Yeah, and you know what, this is part of what removes some of the human error of food, how long it's been displayed, how long it's been refrigerated, what its shelf life is.
Yeah, and depending upon the product, it can start to alert you when these things are going bad or the label changes colors. And so there's a bunch of different innovative ways that people are talking about trying to get food safety and food quality to where it needs to be through technology.
This next one was really interesting. This is one of the examples of a scheduling software, and boy, Hot Schedules has been reigning supreme for a number of years now. It obviously opened the door for a lot of folks to rush into the space.
Yeah, no, there's probably 3 or 4 other scheduling solutions out there that we saw, and as Gary said, Hot Schedules has been the de facto for a number of years, but there's a lot of people saying, we want to try and skin that cat differently, and so they're trying to go out there and do some different things. And so, back to the comment about capitalism at its best, there's some people that are looking at it and saying, we're going to swing the bat and try and either knock them off or take a small portion of the segment that they're not able to hit by doing something unique and different.
Yeah, and safe it is to say the newer products have graphic appeal, and they've got consumer engagement, meaning I can put a schedule into my server's hands, and but they've got some catch up to do. In fact, we stopped and chatted with David Cantu, and we'll have him here on an upcoming show from Hot Schedules, because it'd be a good opportunity for them to show, hey, where are they going? Because these people are just playing catch up at this point.
Yeah, they're just playing catch up. And the other thing I would mention on HR and scheduling software is there's a lot of the bigger players that I mentioned earlier, like See To It and Restaurant Magic and End that are also getting into the scheduling game. Whereas before they were just in the reporting. Let me give you a reporting. Let me integrate to your accounting solution or whatever their niche was. A lot of them now have a Me Too Hot Schedules type competitive product out there as well. And each one of them has some unique features that are different than Hot Schedules. But again, there's more people out there doing that.
Yeah. And then disruptive technology. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, no, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, Uber has changed the taxi cab business. Yeah. You guys, if anybody lives in large cities or even if they don't, it's changed the way that we view transportation. And I think that there's some people out there doing some of those types of things in that Startup Valley, whether it's delivery drivers doing it or, the hashtag tracking. Just there's people out there that are pushing the envelope of where technology can take restaurants that maybe 5 or 10 years ago we would have never even saw coming, that now they're, and I think even people like Harbor Touch that offered free point of sale, they were one of the first ones to offer free point of sale if you do credit cards through them. I'm not saying it's a great product. I'm not endorsing it or not endorsing it, but with that, they changed things. They changed the way we as CVS did business, and a lot of other players out there did business because they were out there disrupting the status quo, the good old boys network of this is the way you sell point of sale.
Right.
And so I think that you'll see a lot more of that as technology gets cheaper, and as people like Uber and others come out there and change the way things happen.
Now that point of sale has been disrupted, it almost, to me, Katie, bar the doors. It just gives everybody a chance in this space. And quite frankly, with it as cost effective as it is now to develop apps, anybody with a good idea has a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they got to get 1 or 2 big customers, and then they start to sell it, up and down the street. A little bit of energy and a little bit of luck, and they're doing well.
So let's jump into our questions. I had a couple funny photos up here. You got Creeper on the left there. Rye Guy is giving us the stink eye when we took his photo here, and then I ran into some wrestlers. What are those guys?
Yeah, the luchadores.
There we go. Holy smokes! But folks, fire in your questions. Here's one that just came up. What was the feeling, Jeremy, between having all of the newer technology with tablets in the same room as the traditional point of sale? How did that look to you as a consumer?
Yeah, no, and that was kind of an interesting deal, and it's funny because there's 2 schools of thought. They have a whole technology pavilion where there's a whole bunch of people doing technology in kind of the space, and you can hit a lot of the technology in 4 or 5 rows. To people, Hot Schedules was hanging out next to the Anheuser-Busch deal, and with that being said, they were outside of the technology space, and so did it benefit them or did it hurt them? Only time will tell, but it was interesting. I will say that personal opinion, there was a lot of the newer guys that spent a lot of marketing dollars buying huge booths, putting up really big signs high up in the air to try and get people, one of the booths that was one of these that we mentioned earlier must have had 40 or 50 people working in their booth, almost to the point that it was distracting trying to get in there to see what was going on. But, people are trying to make a buzz, and so it's an interesting deal to see and to hear what people out there are doing. But yeah, it's interesting because there's this divide between new age and traditional, and the traditionalists are saying, well, I've got this customer and I've got that customer and I've got this customer and I've got that customer. I don't know that a lot of the younger brands out there have had any big significant national wins today. So with that, they don't have a lot to stand on as far as market penetration, other than they are what everybody's looking at. And so it was a fun deal to try and kind of just, I don't want to say poke at some of the younger guys, but to kind of say, hey, how much have you done? Oh, we've done 50 one-off coffee shops. So that's great, but have you done anything like Starbucks, or have you done anything like
a Tully's or some or yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting as these people once you spend the marketing dollars, then it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of them, even the people from the Startup Valley, I went through and asked, where'd your funding come from? And a lot of them were taking VC money, or they did a crowdfunding type thing. So another question just came through. It's about EMV and the liability shift. How much of that was talked about within the space? And I'll let Gary start it off, and then I'll add my opinion. And
yeah, it was interesting because you'd think that it would have been all over the place. In my mind, that only pops up as 1 or 2 booths that actually were promoting EMV.
Yeah,
it was almost the lack of what was missing from NRA this year.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because the liability shift's coming in October, and I actually just had probably a 30-minute conversation with the sales team on Friday about EMV and where we stand, as well as Chicago was my third trade show in as many weeks, where I'd been out, talking to different vendors and talking to different customers, and almost nobody has an answer for it. Some of it they blame on the point of sale vendors. Some of it they blame on the processors. I don't know enough details to know for sure where it's all coming from. A lot of people are talking about it, but I think most restaurateurs are looking at it and saying, it's not going to affect me that greatly, and so I'd rather get to point-to-point encryption. I'd rather get to some form of tokenization, and when EMV is ready, we'll adopt it. But until then, and we see the adoption curve start to happen, and people are more used to it in retail and other places, I think that's when it'll start to hit us. A lot of people are talking about it, but nobody there was out saying, look at what a great solution we've had, from even the hardware manufacturers all the way down to the software value-added resellers and or the ISVs.
Yeah, it still comes down to the manufacturers being able to produce enough of the products that will actually execute, and then the processors communicating with the
different software vendors, out there. In our space, we represent 2 point-of-sale products, and neither one of them are complete with all of our processors with EMV. We have some, but not all of them, and so the market segment and the banking industry in the United States is so segmented that you've got to do certifications for each one of the banks through that processor, and so it's going to take a while to get there.
Yeah. That looks like that's about it for the questions. Great having you guys all on the show. It was our pleasure to run out to Chicago in that sweaty, humid, awful weather. Oh, my heavens, Betsy, I'm not anxious to get back there, but nonetheless.
Oh, it's better than going in January.
There you
Chicago or February.
Good point. Good point. You guys can connect with us. You guys know how to connect with us. Our emails and our cell phones numbers there. And then we've got another webinar coming up here in the next couple weeks. It'll either be Recipe Bureau or Order Entry, one of the two, with a case study wrapped around it. So a customer coming along for that ride. You guys know how to connect to us via the blog and Twitter. Thank you all, and thank you, Jeremy, for helping me with the webinar today.
Yeah, no, and one thing I would also throw out, guys, is if you guys have stuff that you guys want us to talk about, please throw it out there. Twitter and or email is probably the best way to communicate with us. We'd love to dialogue with you guys about what you guys are seeing out there, and or if there's stuff that you guys want to hear about that we can go do research and bring back to our audience.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.